Redefining success frequently comes when we are in times of transition, especially as it relates to our identities. So whether we're adding new identities or we're removing some, or we're just evaluating what are the identities we want to have for ourselves, we often are in a place where we need to relook at how we define success for ourselves. Hello and welcome to the Unlock Lab. I'm your host, Tosca DiMatteo, and today I'm super thrilled to talk to you about the revolutionary act of redefining success. So we're going to talk about how do we define success in all the realms of our lives and how that impacts how we feel about ourselves. Also, how it's a tool for combating the inner critic voices in our head that's not serving us. Before I dive deep in, for those of you new to the podcast, let me introduce who I am. I'm a transformational coach, a keynote speaker, and I do the work of helping folks get out of their own way and organizations to put people first in their culture. If you want to learn more, visit coachtosca.com. All right, great. So here we are, and it's early April when I'm recording this. And this is a topic that I actually wrote about on my blog a few years ago. And it's something that comes up in so many conversations, not only with my clients, but also with my friends. And I am really excited to give it some space today because I did a podcast episode on setting yourself up for success. If you missed it, definitely look back at that. But that was really, I was telling a story about how I decided to take some time and do what I thought I needed to do for myself and for my business. But today's conversation is vastly different, which is really taking a hard look at how you are defining success for yourself, whether that's you as a caregiver, you as an entrepreneur, or you in the corporate environment looking for the success that you want for yourself. It's all relevant because we don't actually think consciously so much about this topic and what the goalposts are that we're using for giving ourselves permission to celebrate and giving ourselves the grace when things don't necessarily go the way we wanted. Yes, you may have goals in mind. Maybe they're your performance goals. Maybe they're those visions and dreams that you have for yourself. But what I'm talking about is digging deeper into this next layer of really understanding the goals and the success measures that you have for yourself. Because we may not even realize the bar that we're setting for ourselves. And often we are really hooked on other people's definitions of success. So let me give you some examples. We may be considering the expectations of others. We may be honoring not ourselves, but rather societal norms and status quo in terms of how we define success. We may be focused wholly on outputs, outcomes, and external results, as opposed to considering dynamics of success that are built based on who we are being and how we are showing up. Those are ways of defining success that aren't often talked about, nor can you find them in many performance evaluations if we want to go that route. We may also be hooked on unrealistic expectations. And those unrealistic expectations often come from places like social media or from stories that aren't actually sharing the true journey of what it took for someone or some company or some entity to get to where they got to be. And so we have these unrealistic expectations, or we make up the timelines in our head that we think actually happened, which are often very false. And perhaps most importantly, we are focused on success metrics that our inner critic voice has given us, which may have come from all of the previously aforementioned sources. So, this conversation today is really about digging in and understanding the truth of how you're defining success for yourself, for your team, for your organization, and really evaluating, are those the metrics that I actually care about, that I value, and that are truth in terms of what would make you feel good if you accomplish them. The big thing about how we define success, we may think, for example, that we're being really lofty and we're being bold in our dreams, but what might be happening is we're actually self-sabotaging ourselves because we keep setting the definition of success in a new place every time we reach a new level. So let me just pause on that for a second, right? Are we setting goals that once we achieve them, we kind of erase that actual goal or definition of success and we place the bar in a higher place? That is one way that we sabotage ourselves from actually enjoying our journey, from honoring what we've accomplished, and for finding contentment and inner peace with our journey. And I felt this very deeply while I was in corporate. And I remember having a conversation one time with my coach at the time, which was around the realization that at that time, it didn't matter where I placed the goalpost. Once I reached it, it still wasn't enough. It wasn't going to be the thing that made me happier. It wasn't going to be the thing that gave me permission to sit and enjoy. And I didn't want to live my life that way. I didn't want to keep moving the goalpost so that nothing was ever enough or my efforts were never enough. So if that resonates with you, take some time to sit with that. Have you ever really given yourself permission to celebrate the ways you have set your definition of success to date? And how has it made you feel? How does it make you feel even now, considering this? The way that we define success for ourselves can help us or harm us in how we choose to live our life, the choices that we make on a daily basis. They can really make a difference in how we're talking to ourselves, how frequently we give ourselves permission to celebrate and honor each step in our journey. How we define success can also contribute to whether we feel overwhelmed or not in our daily lives. For example, if we put out a really, really big goal and how we define success is getting to that goal, and that's the only way we define success, then what does that mean about the several weeks or months or years it takes us to get there? If we're not giving ourselves success metrics along the way, we may end up feeling overwhelmed, or we may never end up feeling like we're making progress in our journey. And that's a really hard and harsh way to live. And I don't want you to live that way because I know there's a better way. So much of this is really sitting down and asking ourselves, what models are we using when we consider how we want to define success for ourselves? So let me just start with when I started my business. I was looking at a post actually that I made when I launched my logo and officially launched my business. It was October of 2019. And I remember putting out there, yeah, like I'm putting it out there. This is the start of me building a 7-figure business. Now, part of that at the time was me wanting to honor a big vision and a big goal. Part of me was wanting to honor that I don't want to play small with launching my business, that I want to believe that anything is possible. That was part of it. And that was truth. And the other part of it was probably considering, well, what does success look like when you launch a business? It looks like financial success. Like the end all be all is, are you making money? Are you bringing in revenues? Are you profitable? And that was a big way of how I looked at success metrics for my business. And to be honest, the financial success metrics of my business has been absolutely front and center for much of my journey. Therefore, a big source of dis-ease and frustration and sadness at times, disappointment, the cause of questioning. And so much of that is because I was hooked on, well, what does it mean to be successful as a business owner? And frankly, there would be people, there's still people, right, today that will reach out to me and say, "Oh my gosh, you're killing the game and you're doing amazing." And it's been very hard for me to receive that because I'm thinking that their measure of success is my financial success. And I'm also thinking, well, my big measure of success is my financial success. But what does this mean in terms of how I show up and how I get to celebrate? And actually, is this what I value most at the end of my day or at the end of my week? Am I looking at my P&L and saying like, gee, can I celebrate or not? And I have to rip all of this up. And I have to ask myself, how do I actually want to measure success? Is it that financial piece? And I've done a lot of exploration and excavation of this question because for so many years, I've struggled with feeling good about the entrepreneurial journey because I have these, and no, it wasn't a seven-figure goal, really, right? Like, especially not in these early years, right? Like, and I don't know if ever like that will be a goal. Maybe, I don't know. But the point being that with the financial definition of success being so front and center because of society, really, and because of how entrepreneurial businesses are talked about. And on and on. There's a lot of reasons, right? But I had to really dig deep and say, what is it that really matters to me? And how do I want to define success? Not by these, you know, goalposts that are quite long term in achieving, but also in how can I, at the end of the day, put my head on my pillow and say, today was a good day. Honestly, in everything that I do, and even in the goal of this Unlock Lab, is to support folks in being able to feel good about themselves every day, not just once a year or once every 5 years where you hit some milestone, but every day you get to say, damn, I lived today to the best of my ability. And I'm proud of myself and I'm happy and I'm laying my head down on my pillow with grace and with self love and with excitement for what tomorrow brings. Like at the end of the day, that's what I want for myself. And that's what I want for you who's listening today in this moment. Coming back to this story of redefining success for myself on this business, one really big way that I shifted was to say to myself, I want to be in alignment with how I'm showing up and the decisions that I'm making. So being in alignment with what I'm saying yes to or what I'm saying no to. That was a really big journey to say, if I can just be in alignment and make choices that make me feel good, not that they are necessarily easy, but that make me feel lighter or that make me feel like I'm in integrity, then that's a damn good success metric for me. And I feel like I'm there. I feel like I know what it takes to be in alignment with myself, with how I'm building my business. And it feels really good because I don't go to sleep anymore going, oh man, should I or shouldn't I have? And a big reason why is because I give myself time and grace to make decisions so that I know I'm putting my best foot forward at making a decision that's in alignment with myself. And sometimes that doesn't mean making the decision fast. It actually means honoring I need time to process and understand what my intuition is saying about an opportunity or a decision. So that's really big, how I define success in the context of this story that I'm telling you. The other context is that as I've been moving more and more into having a broader impact in the world, which was always important to me, a breadth of impact has always been important to me. And I also love having depth of impact and doing one on one transformation work. But I know what really lights up my heart and my soul is when I can say, man, I was able to reach a lot of people with that message and land new thoughts and new ideas into the hearts of a lot of people. And that matters. And that's part of the reason why I'm launched the Unlock Lab for the reach, for the impact. So if I honor that that's important to me and I want to define success by the breadth, then that means I have to focus on the activities and the opportunities that allow me to do that. And that might look like the majority of my days and my time and my weeks are in excavating content that actually matters, content that actually will move the needle in unlocking something in somebody. And what does that mean? That means I may not have the time or capacity, or I may not prioritize, for example, posting on social media every day or even multiple times a day, because I know that the way I want to define success is putting quality content out so that many people can hear it and many people can be impacted by it. So, do you see what I mean by like, when I shift to honor what really matters to me, it will help me make better decisions and it will help me to celebrate when I am doing the things that move the needle on that definition of success. Even in prepping for this conversation and giving myself time and space for that, I'm honoring how I want to define success in doing this business and therefore how I'm shifting what I'm doing, even on a daily or moment to moment basis. Redefining success frequently comes when we are in times of transition, especially as it relates to our identities. So, whether we're adding new identities or we're removing some, or we're just evaluating what are the identities we want to have for ourselves, we often are in a place where we need to relook at how we define success for ourselves. So, what I mean by identities is those labels that you use that often also define your value to yourself or to others, or how you express who you are to others in a way that they will understand. And oftentimes, these identities can be handcuffs because we get so closely enmeshed with these labels. What we don't realize is that we are something so much greater, so much deeper, and so much more expansive than these mere labels and identities. And truly, what's behind all of these identities is something much, much deeper, which answers the question, who am I? And I know this is a big question, but the truth is that when we understand our core essence of who we are, then no identities can really define us, hold us back, or keep us in a box. When we really understand what it means to ask ourselves, who am I? And be able to answer that without labels, it's really powerful. And I think it becomes the true north of how we live our lives, how we make decisions, and how we choose to redefine success for ourselves. I want to give another very important example of how I had been defining success in my life for a very long time. And for the past several years has been an unraveling of that. One of the ways I had been defining success was through the quantity of my relationships. So, for example, hey, if I wanted to meet up with a friend, did I have a friend that I could call that would say yes because I have enough friends that, if I shoot the dart, it's going to hit something, right? Because friendships have always been important to me, relationships have always been important to me. And my friends, I always have treated like family and feel that they are a part of my chosen family. When I would feel a certain way about my life and where I was, part of what I would do is kind of look at, well, how many friends do I have? And do I feel like I have this big circle of this big support team and this, you know, a lot of people that care about me and that I feel loved in that way and all those things, right? You get what I'm saying. And that was one of the ways I defined like, am I living my best life? Am I, enjoying my life because I have all these people that I can go to and connect with and engage with and speak to and all the things. But I realized that what's really actually important to me is that the connections that I have and the relationships that I have are quality interactions. What I realized is I actually really don't want to interact with folks who are wearing a mask with me. And that I actually don't enjoy spending time with folks that I can't go deep with or that I can't, have quality conversations with about things that I actually care about, things that actually matter to me. And I started to shift the definition of what it looks like and feels like for me to feel loved and to feel appreciated and to feel like I matter. This led to me being really choiceful about who do I hang out with and who do I build relationships with and who do I let in my life because I started to define success differently for myself in this facet of my life. This concept of really looking deeply at how you want to define success is life changing because it's waking you up to the rules and the systems and the people that you're living your life by. Because if it's not yourself, then there's an opportunity for you to live your biggest, best life yet because you get to define what success looks like for you. And nobody else can dictate that. Not your parents, not your colleagues, not your boss, not your friends, and certainly not society at large. And when we are caught up in the fact that we are defining success by somebody else, it's usually a big cause of our own distress and our own, unhappiness in our lives. And when we wake up to it, we may realize, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I want to define success because we've been operating under somebody else's paradigm for so long that, yeah, it can be a process to figure out, wow, well, what actually is important to me? What do I value? Like, how do I want to define success? One of my clients, when he started working with me, realized he was operating through the work together. He was operating on definitions of success that he didn't buy into and he thought he was supposed to. He thought, well, I'm supposed to want these things. He had a business for 17 years and he thought he was just supposed to want to see it continue to grow and develop. And in doing this deep work, he realized actually that business had run its course and he actually didn't want to continue to grow it and be the CEO of it and manage it, that he had new dreams and different desires. And when he started to realize that, within 6 months, he sold the business, made a huge move geographically, and all kinds of other things opened up in his life because he realized it was time to let something go and let those false success metrics go so that he could actually follow his own passion. I hope this is inspiration for you to do the same exploration. And if you need support in doing it, because when we've been operating for decades, we often need support in looking at our truth and deconditioning from what we've been told. Please let me know. You can find me at toscadimatteo.com/contact. I'd love to support you. Coming back to this idea of, are we being realistic with our success metrics is really important. And I say this not in this idea of don't be lofty, don't dream the big dream. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is as you move in whatever phase you're in, are you setting expectations that are completely unrealistic because you don't know how to actually set expectations? For example, a dear friend of mine has a business that she's a solopreneur of. And the expectations that she has set has been more in alignment with a big multinational company with tons of financial resources, right? You're picking up what I'm putting down? That's unrealistic as a solopreneur to set your standards to the same standards of a gigantic company with tons of resources. But sometimes in the absence of knowing, well, what is realistic, we pin ourselves to perhaps something within the industry or an organization that's well known, but is nowhere near the scale of where we are. And so we have to back up and say, wait a minute, is this realistic? Look, I can take myself as an example, right? Like, am I setting goals and expectations and success metrics more in line with big consultancy firms or with perhaps even speakers or coaches that have been doing this for 3 decades? Like, where am I looking for information and knowledge about what's realistic or not? And so for you, consider that. It might be based on where you are in your career. It may be based on the journey that you've had to date. And maybe you're setting expectations like you have a whole different journey that you've been on, or a whole different set of skills than you actually have. This is really important to say, where am I getting these kind of definitions from? And is it realistic? Does it make sense? And we often want to fill in the blanks for things that we don't know. Defining success may mean that you're taking things day by day. The quantitative measures may be something you push to the side and you focus more on qualitative measures like who you're being and how you're showing up and what you're prioritizing and sticking to your prioritization list and being discerning and all these other ways that we can define success that aren't perhaps metrics that we're used to, like financial, like quantity, like all of those things. Because, yeah, it can be harder to say, well, how do I know if I showed up as the best version of myself? But that can be a really beautiful way to define success on a daily basis for yourself. And you can inquire and go deeper and say, what does it look like when I show up as the best version of myself? It means I'm taking care of myself, perhaps. Or it means that I'm giving myself time that I need to prepare for meetings, or I'm not scheduling things back to back so that I have space to breathe and process and integrate before I get on the next call, and on, right? I feel like this might be a multi part episode. I don't know, because I feel like there's so much more to cover on this topic of redefining success for yourself. I think the most important piece right now for you to walk away with is to look deeply at the surface level of how you're defining success and then go deeper into what does that mean and what does that look like and what part of this am I in control of and what part of it am I not in control of but I'm holding myself accountable to, right? So these are some ways that you can look deeper and say, is this true to me or is this the conditioned success metrics that I've been operating under? And hold grace for yourself in this because you may look at it and you may find out some things that are hard things to look at. And that's the beauty of this work, which is when you look at the hard things to look at, that's where the growth is, that's where the unlock is, and that's where the breakthrough starts. Cheers to you for staying tuned into this. And I hope you're committing to yourself to take a closer look. I'm here for you if you need anything. This is such an important topic in coming to your inner peace, in coming into your confidence, coming into celebrating yourself and honoring your truth. And I'm here for it and I'm here for you. And I look forward to hearing from you. If there's anything you want to share about what this conversation unlocked for you, more to come, I'm sure, on this topic, whether it's a part 2 or it gets intertwined into other podcast episodes. This is something really foundational to living your biggest life. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you listening. And until next time, ciao for now.